Hello, everyone. It's Jeff again, and I would like to tell you the story of a very humble man who dropped out of school at age 12 and yet changed the world. Charles Edward Taylor was born on the 24th of May in 1868 in Cerro Gordo, Illinois, in a log cabin. But soon after he was born, his family moved to the wilds of Nebraska. At the age of 12, he went to work for the Nebraska State Journal. As an apprentice, he learned how to repair the equipment that printed the newspapers. When he was 24 years old, he met and married Henrietta Webert, who was from Dayton, Ohio, and very much wanted to go back to Dayton and live. He ended up getting a job at Stoddard Manufacturing. They were a company in Dayton that built cars, farm equipment, and bicycles. Charlie was a gifted bicycle mechanic, and his wife owned a small shop in Dayton that had two businesses in it. It had a bicycle shop on one side and an undertaker on the other. And Charlie was offered a job in the bicycle shop as a mechanic. Charlie loved working in the bicycle shop with the two brothers, and he was a gifted mechanic. And they absolutely felt as though they could not continue on with all of the work they were doing without him working in the shop. The brothers were gone a great deal of the time, and they left Charlie in charge of the shop. He did all of the repairs, kept the books. Basically, after 1901, the shop basically was his to run because they were gone for months at a time. The brothers asked Charlie if he could build an 8-horsepower engine, but it had to weigh less than 150 pounds. It took Charlie about 6 weeks to figure out how to do it. He would cast the block out of aluminum. The engine that he built produced 12 horsepower, but it weighed 152 pounds. Charlie didn't know it at the time, but he was about to change history because the two brothers that he worked for in the small bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio, was the Wright brothers, and his engine powered the very first airplane. Charlie worked for the Wright brothers off and on until 1920. In 1920, he decided it was time to seek an easier life, and he semi-retired and moved to California. Charlie had invested all of his money in several hundred acres in the Imperial Valley, and when the Salton Sea flooded the entire valley, it wiped Charlie out financially. In 1936, Henry Ford finally tracked down Charlie and asked him if he would return to Dayton and help him move the original Wright Brothers bicycle shop to his museum in Dearborn, Michigan. He and Orville, by this time Wilbur had already died, went back to Dayton and helped in the demolition and reconstruction of the original bicycle shop at the Dearborn Village Museum. Orville Wright felt so sorry for Charlie that he went to the local bank and set up an annuity which paid Charlie $800 a year for the rest of his life. In 1941, Charlie returned to California, finding work in a defense factory. He had a heart attack in 1945 and was no longer able to do the hard work. By 1955, his health conditions had become such that his annuity and his Social Security could no longer provide the things that he needed, and he ended up in the charity ward of the Los Angeles County Hospital. The man who had built most of the control systems and the engine for the original plane that flew was now lying in the charity ward of the Los Angeles County Hospital near death. Someone found out who the old man was lying in the bed about to die and contacted a reporter at the Los Angeles Times. A series of stories ran in the newspaper telling the story of the man named Charlie Taylor, and people sent money in to help take care of his medical expenses, and he was allowed to live the last few months of his life in reasonable comfort in a private sanitarium. Charlie died January 30th, 1956, 8 years to the day after his friend Orville Wright died. He was buried in the Portal of Folded Wings Shrine to Aviation in Burbank, California. Charles Edward Taylor, a man forgotten in history. I leave you now on the windswept plains of Illinois, right outside of Cerro Gordo, where Charlie Taylor was born. Remember, everyone, be good to each other, think good thoughts, do good deeds, and I will see you again.